Okay.
We're recording.
Okay. Now, then we've only got essentially one agenda item, which is to talk. The one thing I would say is that we would consent to the agenda items, and then we would also consent to the time, the approximate time, which I intended to be an hour. I like there to be some limit on meetings because I've had experiences where meetings would go on and on and on. I don't want to. I want I want if we have too much to talk about, we'll just meet again. At another time in another place. So.
Shankar and I don't know what you're talking about. There aren't any base camp meetings that go on and on and on and on and on and on.
There aren't any? So ours is the only one?
No, there have been some real marathons. Ones where Shankar has been in a vehicle that has passed through multiple states, where I could see through the window all the terrain changing. There'll be like grain elevators in the background, then there's a cityscape, and then he's back in Washington.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't do is I didn't so far break the time zone.
Yeah, you're always vertically traveling. You're always same time zone.
Yes.
Vertically, north-south.
Okay, so...
already down the rabbit hole.
So we are going to tell a little bit about ourselves, where we are located. This is just suggested, you don't have to. Where we're coming from in terms of expectations for the group, and especially of interest to me would be as if anyone is actually an economist by profession, and failing that, if you've actually ever read anything about economics, especially ecological economics. And some of you may have already looked at the reading list that I put up, and that's all ecological economics. And except for Robert Goodland, I'm not aware of any ecological economists who are vegan. And they may be, but they're not telling us about it. And then I thought maybe about 10 minutes before the conclusion of the meeting, we'd also discuss the next meeting, the time, length, and format, et cetera, et cetera. So does that sound like a good plan? Is all what I just said basically all right? Everybody consent to that? Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so, and I think that when you are in the gallery view, and perhaps Ray, you could address this question, that everyone, the order, the left, upper right, lower left, and lower right, is all different for everybody, or is it?
Yeah, it'll be different. You're always in the, wait, I'm in the top right for me. I think we're always, it might be different because you switched hosting, well, the right to record. I guess I'm not a host yet, so I'm not sure what the rules are for how the...
It's easy to go by the participants.
There's also the possibility that when I'm recording, it may not be recording all four windows at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I know where the setting is, but I don't know whether it's set per user, whether it's a Climate Healer setting.
Yeah. Oh, well, we won't worry about that. I just say I'll just go from my top left around and then winding up with me, which would be Shankar. You want to start?
Yes. My name is Shankar. Full name is Shankar Balasubramanian. I go by Shankar, and I am from Greenbelt, Maryland. It's a Washington D.C. area. I'm from that region, and I work as a consultant, research analyst, more from a business process, marketing research, market research, and also some of the operations and finance related activities. So I love business, I love economy, I love business process. And more than that, I love veganism. I love how we can all bring things together, and I love ideas. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, and then I guess next would be Ray.
I'm Ray Kowalczyk. I'm in Toronto, Canada, and I've been a video editor for 20 years in the television industry. I was originally trained in mass communications and switched to fiction because the truth was too painful during mass communications during the first Gulf War in Minnesota. So I was originally from Manitoba, did school in Minnesota, and then transferred to Toronto where I studied film and became a video editor. So now I have a very close connection with critiquing the media in particular. I didn't have a very strong opinion of the economy until I became an environmentalist in 2015. And then I've discovered that everything that has to do with the environment seems to have this flip side of the coin that is the economy, and most of the news about it is bad. There's a deep conflict between the environment and the economy, I have discovered. So there's a new economy. I wonder if we could have one where there isn't that conflict. Thank you.
Okay, Carol?
Okay, now, after the comments here and about finding and agreeing with the fact that there's a great deal of negativity going on about the economy, I'm executive director of a nonprofit called Reap Goodness. And we're doing some work with the indigenous and hydroponics and helping them after they requested agriculture. And agriculture sent me on this path to looking at the environment and looking at it in a different way. While we were working with the Native Americans, we were also developing 2 books on worker-owned cooperatives. And we are a member, Reap Goodness is a member of the New Economy Coalition, which is North American, both American and Canadian nonprofits that are, whose purpose is to change the economy of North America. And their sister organization, which is much older in Europe, is RIPESS, R-I-P-E-S-S, that's an acronym, Spanish, I'm sorry, don't know what it is. The European countries are working with their former colonies in South America and Africa to change the economy of the entire world. And now we've joined hands across the ocean. As a member of the New Economy Coalition, I note that, and if you go there to that place and look at their membership, you'll be surprised at how many are devoted to worker-owned cooperatives and alternative currencies, public banking, and so on, time banks, and you name it. And they are looking at alternatives to the current economic system, period, which has created all the inequality and also devastation of the planet for the benefit of really a very few people. I understand there are about 900 people control all the money in the world. It's a very small number considering we have about 8 billion. And where the New Economy Coalition and RIPESS together are really kind of slowly pulling the rug out from under the old economies. And I can't wait to be a part of that as well. I'm on a committee or working group there, which has to do with education. And we're going to be meeting also like this in education because we're developing training books. We've already developed 2 on worker-owned cooperatives. They're general, but needed, especially the people skills, because people don't know how to own a business together after working for other people in a pyramidal structure. So we wrote a whole book on that. And now we're about to write 3 more. This has to do with the environment. And what we're doing is very bold, very much outside of the box. And we're trying to get the attention of funders who don't necessarily like to fund things outside of the box, but we will do that. And these 3 books are to support 3 worker-owned cooperatives that will work as a trio, a tour de force, if you will, to store water in land on slopes, and also to create food forestry, and then also to clean the waters, and also collect human waste around the world for later composting and create water for animal sanctuaries away from farming. And this is a very bold move, and we want to trial this very soon with universities. I'm approaching them, and we're going to, in fact, we just changed our strategy a little bit. We're going to expand after doing one set of universities in America to other universities in other countries, because young people, I'm looking at Shankar here and others who are on this in Vegan World 2026, they're very open. They're very open to change and doing things differently. And if we were to try to do this with existing small towns, which was our first focus, we would come into resistance. Think about our country. This country was founded as a way to have individual owned land, different than what we had in Europe, which was monarchy and feudalism. And nobody owned the land except the landlord or the king of a small area or whatever it might be. And so when they had the opportunity to come here to North America, they could get what was called free land. They decimated the Native Americans, but they got free land. It was their own. And we're around the world, wherever there were colonies and they've gone independent like they did in the US, that's the same thing. Even in Africa, they have very tiny parcels of land, but it's their own. And so working as cooperatives is a new concept, and they would be a bit resistant, which is understandable. So we're going to work with the university students who are open to trying new things and do this in the places where there is the greatest need, greatest desertification, greatest need for water and farming and in a beautiful way. And to do this, so we're going to be creating new economies as we do this as well. I failed to mention that. The sharing economy is alive and well and growing, but those people who still feel they have to have cash for every single transaction or every single thing that they need are going to be surprised at how much we already do share. And that's moving forward very quickly. The younger people are the most open to this idea, but it speaks to us as equals. And so that's what we're going to focus on, is sharing economies. And that's the new economies, is how to make us understand that we are equals, and that when we share, we confirm the fact that we are all equal in importance along with all living beings on the planet. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm sorry for the long explanation, but it is complex. So I had to do that, sorry. That's it.
Yes, and one other question. I didn't get where you're from physically.
Oh, yes. We're in the Phoenix, Arizona area, right near where Silas Rao is.
Ah,
I met him on an Indian reservation.
oh, you're on an Indian reservation?
No, that's where I met him though.
Oh,
I'm in Scottsdale, yeah, a suburb of Phoenix.
You said you have one of your books out already. Was that?
Two, actually.
Two. And what are they? What are the titles?
One is Worker Cooperative People Skills. That's the one that was needed the most. The other is Worker Cooperative Technical Skills, not covered by other organizations.
Great, thank you.
And they're on our website, which is reapgoodness.org. So you can find, they're very inexpensive. They're ebooks and they're $4.99 each. We did that on purpose because people who start cooperatives are usually poor.
reapgoodness.org. Okay. Great. Okay. You want to say anything?
Oh, sure. Hi, I'm Kate. I've been hanging around with him for some 31 years, and I'm a retired librarian. And I first became interested in the new economy, I guess you'd say, through an interest in simple living. And I ended up writing and getting a book published on that called The Practical Peacemaker. That was about 10 years ago. Then we had a group here in our home that did an ongoing class on the book Ecological Economics. Was that?
Yeah. We did ecological. Herman Daly and Joshua Farley, Ecological Economics, and also Jack Mano, Privileged Goods.
Yeah. So we studied that as a group, and so then that's the basics of what I learned about that. Have various activities going on. I'm the organizer of our Denver Vegans. We're in Denver, Denver Vegans Meetup, and we do various things to try and promote veganism. I think that's about all that I have to say. Go ahead.
Okay, and I'm Keith, and I've done various things. I've been a vegan for almost 40 years, not quite, 39 years or so, and I've been active in various organizations, vegetarian at first and then vegan later. Vegetarian Society of DC, and the Vegetarian Society of Colorado, the International Vegetarian Union, and currently Denver Vegans. And I was also, we helped organize a rather small local peak oil group. I'm not sure if you've probably heard of peak oil, maximum point of oil production. Anyway, so and that's how we got interested in ecological economics, because this is going to have obviously an economic effect, and we wanted to know what those effects would be. I've also written a couple of books, but none of them on economics. I wrote a vegetarian source book in 1983, published by Putnam's, and I wrote Lost Religion of Jesus, Lantern Books 2000, which is about Christianity and vegetarianism, or vegetarianism in early Christianity. Okay, so so where do we want to go from here? I would say I'll just give you my sort of expectations for the group, which was framed, and I was very interested in what Carol had to say. So this will give a somewhat different tinge to it, but I'm approaching it from the framework of ecological economics, which is an actual discipline, or actually it's a trans discipline. And Herman Daly, has anyone heard of Herman Daly, or has anyone heard of, okay. Anyway, Herman Daly is a guy, and he, back in the 70s and the 80s, he started getting interested in limits to growth, these kinds of issues, and decided that the current growth-oriented economy was not going to work, and that we needed a different economic system, but that none of the economists were looking into it. And so, and it spun out, and now there's a whole bunch of other people that are interested in as well. And this is most of what I put on the ecological economics reading list, which is on the docs and files. And this list could easily be expanded considerably. So I've read a lot of different books related to this general area, and I haven't read everything that Herman Daly has written, but I've read a considerable amount of it, and I could read some more. The main thing I sort of don't like about ecological economics is that it's heavily white male oriented, and I say this as a white male myself, that it's a little bit embarrassing. But Kate Raworth has written a book a couple of years ago, which essentially, even though she doesn't exactly claim that it's ecological economics, it is. And I think that her book is probably more accessible than a lot of the textbooks, but says pretty much the same thing. And there's also some videos that I've got out there, and also. So the way I've seen other groups, I've been in one other group, and that's the Nature Stewardship Group. And they have, the way their group operated, and they haven't, we haven't really gotten that far yet, but we started compiling the questions, these questions that came up at the 2018 conference in Phoenix, which I was at. Were you there, Carol? Were you at Phoenix?
I was at the Vegan World 2026 conference in Phoenix, the first one, not the second.
2018?
The first.
We may have met.
Probably. There were so many people there.
Yeah.
And so was I. Yeah.
And Kate was there too. Okay. Anyway, they put all these questions on the board, and then we categorized them. And some questions came down as new economy. And I think, Ray, are they out there somewhere? I'm now. Let's see. Yes, they are.
They're in the message board.
They're on the message board. So if you look on the message bar, it says like economic new model question 20. How do we share intellectual property across the globe? And so forth and so on. So we could actually we could actually start to answer those questions and then see where we want to go as a group. The one obvious thought that I had is to either develop a white paper, sort of like Silas has done a white paper for climate change. Well, we could do a white paper for a new economy. Or we could, even if we wanted to be really ambitious, we could come up with a plan of action and go out there and try to convince vegans and economists and anybody else that we ought to take action to do X, Y, and Z.
What you're describing there is probably the threshold where we turn into a task force. So the study group is collecting data and coming up with ideas, everybody getting on the same page. And then as we go, hey, you know what we should do? And that's probably where we start splitting off into task forces. Either one task force, or it could be many, because there's many things that you can do based on the same body of collected information.
Yes, and I think that's an excellent plan. The Nature Stewardship Group, and I think the Vegan Collective Intelligence Group, which I am not a member of, but which I've heard about, are also concerned about like setting up rules for self-governance. And there's been a lot of discussion about sociocracy. I personally, and I'm sort of following this with interest, but I'm not really that worried about how we conduct our meetings, and as long as they go fairly well. So as long as everybody gets to say something, and I'm not too worried about about how we conduct meetings. The only things I would sort of insist on is the meeting has to eventually end, so that I'm not stuck here, in 3 hours still listening to somebody that's going on. So it has to end at some point. But other than that,
adhering to the agenda is good too, because that kind of hints when the meeting ends. And if we manage to get through the agenda and people still want to talk, sometimes a lot of excitement gets built up. You can hand off the reins to somebody and say, you're now the moderator. You guys can have an after party and talk about whatever you want that has to do with the economy.
Oh, yeah.
That's happened. And it's been kind of nice blend of structure, discipline, getting things done, checking off the list, and then just play around and talk about more organic ideas.
That's an excellent suggestion. Okay, so does someone else want to comment on where you want the group to go? What's the next step? Just answer those questions, or come up with some new questions, or what? Anybody have any thoughts?
Yeah, if I'm allowed, I may go. Yeah. So I love the economy, especially from the vegan economy, and right from my grad school, I'm always fascinated with the NAICS codes. So what I'm trying to envision is, can there be a separate NAICS code dedicated for vegan, like North American industry standard codes? So how I am seeing how we can bridge the gap is, like, one is the companies, another is the products and services, another is the job market. So I want to definitely categorize a lot of things into companies, products and services, like a vegan companies. Somehow they are like, they share the vegan mission or goal or the purpose in whatever way they can, either part or full. Like, for example, like you can still take Burger King, they sell some kind of vegan version of burger that can be included. But if some organization is 100% established, fine. Then the products and services. What are the products? Like, you have a vegan shoe, we have a vegan belt, you got a vegan food, everything. Then another one is the jobs. Like, what vegan jobs are there? How we can equip people to transition there? Like, what training? So if I can 3 things, because most of the NAICS code tags around this 3. There are other areas, but I would love to do, and that I feel like I'm more from action side of boosting the economy.
So to clarify, you're interested in investigating and researching vegan jobs, vegan products, and what was the third one? Vegan industries?
The companies. First one is companies. Number 2 is products and services.
Yes.
Number 3 is the jobs.
Yes. Oh, that's interesting.
Overall, I forgot to tell how we can bring a vegan NAICS code.
How we
like
can
for example, like the North American industry standard codes, NAICS code. For example, fisheries have a NAICS code. The mineral extraction has a NAICS code. Can't we have one for vegan?
Okay.
So it sounds like, Shankar, you're talking about building a separate vegan economy, separate from the one that we currently have. And that fits really well into the Vegan Rule 2026 thing, which is all about don't fight the current system, build one that makes the current system obsolete. Build one that's everybody, when they see it, they'll go, oh, that's so much better than what we're doing. And then, and this gets into a lot bigger challenge of how systems work. If that current system that we have called the economy collapses, what do we have to put in its place? Does it collapse and we end up in chaos, or does it, show its signs it's on its way out and then we replace it with a new system? Or do we tweak the current system using the elements that are worth keeping? And there's a lot of debate about whether that's even possible in systems theory.
Yeah,
I betrayed a little bit of my philosophy in the invitation to this group that I posted today, that big systems don't ever get to the place where you can fix them and repair them and patch them and redesign them. They eventually have to be replaced with a whole new system. And this is relatively new to me, like just within the last couple of years, just since I've been following Sailesh Rao's way of engaging with vegan activism and environmentalism. So I still have to understand how systems exist. And I'm seeing that Buckminster Fuller that was essentially his philosophy, to build the alternate system that's better, to make the current one obsolete. And other thinkers like Deborah Fries, who has the double loop system of change, where the system is a living organism that has a peak, a decline, and a death, and is replaced by a new system.
Yeah.
Is all this, radical high thinking, or does it all fit into everybody's impression of how the world works? I'm very malleable on all these points.
Yeah, just want to add one point. I totally agree, Ray. Some of the things I see here is definitely there will be an establishment, like some form of either non-profits or a company or groups or associations will be definitely there. Then the products and service exchange will be definitely there in some form, counseling or dietitian counseling, or even everything will be service or selling maybe like a vegan shirt or some alternative to a thing. Another one is the roles or jobs, whatever people take. The metrics might go into the Aquarius, or instead of measuring as a dollar, we might measure as Aquarius or anything. And I also see there is a time to transition. So until that, the companies who already operate, they're adapting and they're changing. Like, I'm okay with any approach. Like, I think it's only few premises changes. It's adaptable. Some of them are constant. Some of the variable aspects are we can address it, as in the 4 phase or something like the illuminators and all those. In that angle, we can pick it up.
Shankar, have you come across Vegan Linked? It's been mentioned a few times in Basecamp as it's actually founded by Jeff Adams, who was the editor of the Countdown to Year Zero documentary.
Yes.
So I'm just
yes.
become acquainted with him, and I haven't really investigated Vegan Link, but that fits into what you're talking about.
Yes, Ray. I think you have to bring them in. So you have to bring them in.
I was
here
trying to
or
think of
if
who to
possible.
invite today, and now that you've mentioned it, I'm like, oh, should have invited Jeff. So I'll make sure I'll loop him into the next meeting.
Please, yeah.
Another, oh, sure, Carol, you got your hand up.
Just wanted to chime in based on what the two of you were chatting about, and that is the Aquarius. I was wondering how our organization and other organizations who want to move in this direction are going to fit into Aquarius. It's still kind of a mystery at this point, but it's an alternative currency, and we know from local currencies that are moving side by side with, let's say, the British pound. There are 2 counties that have their own local currency in England, and they're working very, very well to stimulate the local economies. Most people do not understand the multiplier effect in economics. It's very simple. It's elementary school mathematics. It does not require huge thinking. I used to do seminars, this is probably about 15 years ago, on the right use of money. And so I brought up the local economies. This is before Local First Arizona took place. It's the premier one in the United States, localist movement. And people with multiple university degrees had no idea how the multiplier effect works and how money circulates inside one place. They had no clue. And it's very, very simple to understand. But once they do, then it changes their focus on everything. The cryptocurrencies are a type of alternative currency, but run side by side with the national currency, if you will, until such time as people start shifting most of their money over into, or their exchanges, into what exactly you said, Shankar. You identify the companies, the products, the jobs, and so on, and then you begin to move more people over into using Aquarius or another cryptocurrency or local currencies. And you can have all 3 until such time as we move into what is the true future, which is the sharing economies with no monetary exchange needed. It used to be that way before money was invented as a third-party type of exchange. But the bartering got out of hand, and so it sent up resentments and sometimes even violence. And so the money being introduced in whatever form it came, it might have been shells or whatever it might be, it offered a way of easing these exchanges. We have a little bit easier time now with computers to give us a value. It could be that would have to be decided upon by all the people for goods and services. The time banks, of course, there's a pledge to have everyone's time be of equal value. We're moving into a greater realm of equality very, very quickly. And these exchanges, that non-cash exchanges through time banks and other means, just obviously things like barn raisings and potluck dinners and so on, these are all sharing economy. And I know in more advanced thinking, this is what we will do. We won't need to have money. It's just automatic that we will be sharing what we have with others. Once again, that individualism and the current method of our economy right now is how much can I get, and it's very self-focused. And we also have then it goes further into greed, which means that I have more and you have less, and that's the way I want it. And I want more and more and more. I want to be Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, and I want to have all this money piled up that I can't even use. But it says I'm more important than you are, and it's not the case. Of course, they're not. They're just human beings, like anyone else. And as we go more and more into the sharing economies, the sense of equality, with equality, racial, gender, and other forms of equality, it will also be true for the economics. And I think that we're on the right track. As soon as Shankar was talking about categorizing these things formally, I got very excited. It was hard for me to keep my microphone off as you were talking about these things. I can't wait to do that. I cannot wait. The codes, we need to have different codes. We have them for exchanges. We have the standard codes that are for manufacturing that were started in Europe, and the whole world has become part of it. We can do exactly the same thing with vegan products. I know we can, and that categorizing would be really, really good graduate school opportunity for someone to start the system of that categorizing. And then others will take it up from there in different categories to make them more finite. And this conversation, this one conversation gives me hope. I want to tell you that. Thank you very much. And your discussions, Ray, about these different authors, I don't know who they are. I don't know what their philosophies are, but we can also describe those. I would like for us to do that as sort of a book report in so that we can understand their concepts without having to go through reading whole books ourselves. I don't have time to do that. I'm writing whole books, so I don't have time to read them. But I would love to do that here. And if we can then take that to the public, so the public understands that. We need PR, okay? By the way, at the New Economy Coalition, they now have a new offering. I forget what they call it just right now, but it's a way of connecting with public relations sources to get the word out for whatever it is you're doing. Next time we meet, I will have that. I'll report on that. I just joined it. It's for nonprofits like ours. Our little one, it's $200 a year to then have access to all these different news media sources where we can get the word out. So if that's something we can jump onto, if you're not a member of the New Economy Coalition or something like it, then I'll report on that here too. That'll be my book report for you, okay?
And the book that you're reporting on is?
It's not a book. It's actually an app that is complex. It's based on Microsoft Excel, and in there are sheets with different lists of PR sources, so news sources, kind of like your API, UPS, and all those. But there are a number of them where we can get people's attention who would be very interested in getting new news. The news sources online are so huge, and there's so many of them, it's very confusing. So if we can use these new news media resources, then we can get the word out of what we're doing quickly. Like, for instance, I wanted to find out what's on the minds of people in the rural areas. So I just put into Google, I put rural blogs. Oh, that's when people write a blog, they're writing about what they feel. I wanted to know. And what came up was a news service strictly for rural towns. This is, they can't afford to hire a full-time reporter, so they use their own news service. And there I found, very interestingly, there was a meeting going on that they reported on. It takes place once a year among all farmers. And it's covered by this news service. And Sonny Perdue, the Department of Agriculture head, was there. And President Trump called him while he was on the stage and was telling the people, I hope you love me more now than you did in 2016, and on and on. And people started streaming out of the building. And there's the reporter from that news service reporting that. None of the major news sources caught that at all or would report on it, but did. And then how the people were booing at the end when the president hung up. That would not make the news. But it says, this is what's on their minds. And that's what I wanted to find out. So this news service for rural areas, rural magazine or rural newspapers is where we can go. That's just one small example. So we can reach them with whatever we're going to do. That good work that Shankar listed out is, I'm on board. If he wants to do something like that or head that up or organize it, and we do this together, we can get the information out, the news out about the new economy very, very quickly, very quickly. So I'll find out more about that news service because I just signed up for it, and then I'll report back on that, okay? I have to make notes so I don't forget.
I have a question about that. Getting out the good news about the new economy. Is the old economy the big mean dinosaur that's going to eat up anybody trying to replace it? Old systems are famous for dying hard, and they put their last resources into preserving themselves. And I've heard that developing cryptocurrency is a dangerous proposition if anybody thinks it's going to replace the system that is so well loved by the industrialists who are in control of a lot of different levers of society. Is there any reason not to, fully fledged build the economy before we unveil it? Or is that even more dangerous? Or is there any danger at all?
I'm looking at the local currencies in England, for instance. They're side by side with the British pound. British pound's not going away, but those communities inside those counties are doing beautifully because people then finally understand how money circulates inside one place. And so they're very, that's one of the things that probably gave them the courage to request Brexit. So that might be a way of it tumbling. So it was one is coming down, the other one's going up. That's the way I see it. So it's not harsh. It's not, I say, slowly pulling the rug out from under the other without them even understanding that they're moving along with that rug out the door. So I think it will happen in a more peaceful way than we could imagine. We don't have to have a collapse. We don't have to do that. And if we have a collapse, once an old system leaves, you have to have it replaced by a new system or there's complete chaos, and nobody wants the chaos. So they're already developing these new systems. And so as long as we learn about them, know about them, can access them, like I'm really very curious about Aquarius, then I want to find out, then those people will be more settled and they'll jump into it. The sharing economy, which uses no money, is something that the old guard is very afraid of. When Bill Clinton was president, he wanted people to squeal on each other if they exchanged services so that they would be taxed for the economic value of those services. Nobody listened, okay? But they kept helping each other. And that's the way it's going to be as we go forward. It's just a different means. Aquarius and the other cryptocurrencies are just a way of helping each other, selecting each other out for like interests, I think, because there's more than one kind of cryptocurrency, or even in the local economies are another, the time banks another. There's so many that we can actually avail ourselves of more than one at this time, not just the standard currency and system and one alternative, but more than one. And that it's a very exciting time to be in this change. We'll see what settles. I think it's going to be the sharing economy in the end, without having to bother with any kind of currency.
Shankar.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Carol, I think the discussion that you mentioned got one more point too. See, right now the census is going on right now, I think around March. So I know it's too early to bring in, I don't know. How I see is like Keith was saying about the white paper or probably even a proposal, like I still don't know how the mechanism works, but we can find it in the upcoming days. We can group the products or the establishments and also the employment plus how much each of this industry makes current revenue. Then we can push it for requesting an X code for dedicated to vegan. Then what we can do is one more column. I'm seeing it as a table, visualizing as a table. Then we can say carbon footprint. We can stand out. So definitely all this will have a low carbon. It will then develop as a metric. See, when the new economy, all I'm saying is how we move the metric first. Right now, everybody's thinking money, money, money. Yes, I agree. So it's a way to analyze the data. So then the metric goes on carbon footprint. Then that will actually impact the subsidies. Like when it has more carbon footprint, where you want to, it impacts or disrupts the other industry, I feel. So everything could be a metric, and where I'm borrowing this idea is already in Maryland. They are meeting with the senators, everybody, and they were actually pushing like just this through the University of Maryland, College Park. They are pushing, hey, this is what we did, and for the food, you should trace it back to carbon footprint. And vegan product, they're doing it through the vegan products and everything. So that's where I'm saying when you can do it at a small level, we can reflect it for the entire North America, or maybe it can set as a world standard. how the product, service, or establishments or the economy is linked to the carbon footprint. That's one way, other than just measuring employment, revenue, or the cost or the taxes.
Yes, I think there's two sort of streams of thought here. One is sort of the microeconomy, and another is the macroeconomy. And I'm sort of more interested in the macroeconomic things like resource shortages, limits to growth, that kind of thing. Whereas I think that Shankar and Carol are more interested in, the nitty gritty of what's going to be happening at sort of the micro level. What are people actually going to be doing at that point? Well, I'm wondering if we want to set up another meeting, or perhaps talk about, like, where do we want this to go? I could see that everybody could, like, I think that it sounds like Carol and Shankar could probably develop something just on their own, as proposals as to how to what they would like to see happen. So that might be one direction. Maybe just a paragraph or two paragraphs about what you'd like to do, and I could do the same thing, and even Ray could do something. If I'm not sure, I'm not sure you're interested in the economy. Ray is interested in the economy, so just wants to see everything functioning well, and interested in mass communications.
Well, I'm a good sounding board because my interest in the economy is about 4 years old. I'm a baby, so I'm a good sounding board to test against the. I can represent the that huge part of our population that doesn't really care about the economy, other than it sounds like a good word that as long as it keeps growing and growing and growing, we should all be fine. Which I've discovered that's not the case. But
Yeah.
it's I mean, all this is great to hear that as I've been involved in environmentalism, most of the answers of why things aren't happening are because of the economy. The economy, though, we have to transition jobs though, and we had a climate march that had jobs in the title just so people wouldn't panic, right? Jobs, justice, and the climate. So all this is great to know, and great to hear that there is a transition that's happening, because I've said in a few other meetings that we have to make changes to systems, which is kind of like being in the middle of a lake, switching from one canoe to another, where you raft them together, and that moment when you shift from one to the other, you have to do it right, or else you end up in the water, right? It's a delicate process, but if it's something that we chart out the path, then it doesn't need to be as scary as all that. There's a huge amount of fear of what will happen to the economy. That's you turn on the news and that's pretty much all you hear about. And that is the biggest resistance to the vegan movement, is that there aren't any economic levers to veganism. Oops, sorry. It's insulin time for my cat. There's no levers that the government can control veganism. This isn't like wind turbines where they need to be on board in order for a green energy revolution. A green food revolution is something that can happen from the bottom up. It can be a grassroots movement, and they tend to like the ones where they can control the levers of the economy and throttle it. And this is going to happen organically, much to the consternation of those that are in power, that would continue to support the meat industry long after anybody wants to make use of it. If the United States went vegan, we'd still have exports to contend with. So it's definitely a global solution that we have to find.
Okay, so here's what I would suggest. Each of us would come up with like a paragraph, and just on what you'd like to see the group go and do if you if you had your wishes completely fulfilled. And then perhaps we could meet again in when? A week, 2 weeks, a month? What does anybody think? And is this a good time? I know that there was, actually, I saw just briefly, I'm not sure if it was this group, but someone like from the Europe asked, is this meeting going to be recorded so I could see it? And of course, right now it's like, 2 a.m. in the UK, so it's not a very good time to join a meeting.
I wanted to bring it up to Jean-Francois Noubel, who's the leader of the Ahimsa, or the Aquarius group, he's based in France. So there's now 2 people in Europe in that time zone that might be of interest. So if we really want to loop him into a conversation, we might think of a different time zone or a different time to try to accommodate that.
Yeah, the morning would work. 9 a.m. Pacific, or it would be 10 in Denver, and that would be like 3 o'clock in the, 7 hours? It'd be about 5 o'clock in the UK and 6 o'clock in Paris. So I think that maybe the morning might be a better time. But there was somebody we had on that doodle poll, and perhaps next time I could just make it an open poll. But some people didn't like the morning, or it wasn't good for them in the morning. So that's also a concern. I mean, if people around here can't make it in the morning, then that's an issue.
You're not probably going to accommodate everybody. And that's like, we're not accommodating the people in Europe right now. Okay, and that's going to have to be, so you have to go with the vast majority of those who are going to be available. My time is flexible. I'm worried about Shankar. I don't know about your schedule.
Yes, I can either make like a really early mornings or evenings. So this is a perfect time, because usually I Eastern time zone, I finish my work around 6 o'clock. Some days it's longer, but I'm fine.
What time do you start in the morning, your work?
8:30 I had to be there, at usually 8-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm fine. What I can do is, as long as there is an agenda or there is something like we are finding, I can touch base with any one of you. I can follow up, and I would do that. Sometimes it's okay. I'm willing to support. Then if there is something, some days it comes, I'll be active. So I'm totally fine. As long as the mission is done. I'm more process oriented. So things are done, I'm happy.
So we could switch. We could have, like, if you're going to do this once every 2 weeks, I can't see doing it any more than that, because all of us have very, very busy jobs. But if you do this one in the morning and then 2 weeks later you do one in the evening, you'll probably get most people, and then they can catch up with the recordings.
Yes.
And any kind of written reports.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
That makes sense?
Yes.
That's great. There's one more resource that we have, which is that there's a 24-hour block party that radish.org hosts every Friday. So if there's an opportunity to just, want to discuss the new economy, we block out an hour or two in that 24-hour schedule, and it might be one of those time slots where we can collaborate with people that are, especially the organizers of the Ahimsa. I keep saying Ahimsa coin. The
Aquarius. Yes. Amazing. Good idea. Good idea. Yeah.
Which of course is more than just cryptocurrency. It's also they're starting with a redefinition of wealth, which obviously is a really good place to start.
Yeah.
And has a lot of overlap with the new economy.
I was actually in that Vegan World 2019, that meeting. I was there in Arizona. I got a chance to, actually I was part of that group where Francois Noubel was there, and Sailesh, everybody. We had a demo how it works. We had like a map or something like that. We exchanged, and it was the gift economy, and time bank came in my mind when I was doing that, something similar. But I'm open how it evolves to see. It was fun, yeah.
I actually just have a WhatsApp message from Sailesh saying that he's speaking to Jean-Francois on Monday. Maybe we should convey to them that we're trying to find a time for our new economy group that's compatible with the European time slot, so in the morning, and it'd be great if we could get him interested in that.
Yeah, the thing with the morning time slot, because I think Shankar, you're in the Eastern time zone, aren't you? So 8:30 for you would be 6:30 for us. So then it's getting pretty early. But we could do it, or I could do it. But that would be
let's find out what's comfortable for Shankar, because his ideas are probably going to be a basis for what we're going to be doing for me in my thinking. And it's because he's covered more than one territory that we can approach, more than one subject, if you will. And those categories are very important. And so I would like to work at least once a month to make sure that Shankar is on here in an evening like we are right now. And then we have the group, we have postings with Basecamp, so we can do some communication through our new economy group on there and post documents and other things for people to see at their leisure whenever they can. So, but we have to have him on at least once a month to do reporting and to make sure that we're in line with what he's thinking. And anybody else who might be jumping on board, like the group that you said, Ray, is the Aquarius group is a different group. So I'd like to, we can't help but merge with them because they're part of the economy. But we can do that through Basecamp. Let's focus on some of that. We can also do that 24. I haven't availed myself of that 24-hour deal, but we could also do something like that. But in the morning, if we are to bring in the Europeans, then I think I'm open to doing that too, as early as you want. I'm in a co-housing situation here, and the person that I'm with, who also rents here, sleeps until very late, until about 10 or 11 in the morning. So I'll sit in my car if I have to. I don't care. It just doesn't bother me. But I'll make sure that we can be there. I can be there early in the morning too. I'm usually up about 5 or 6 o'clock, so that's not a problem.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Okay, so I guess we'll resolve the question of when to meet at maybe in offline, but I'd say tentatively same time, same station in next month, which would be anyway whatever the same. This is the last. What is today? 26.
Wednesday, 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, not 2 weeks, but more like 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
4 weeks from today.
The last week in March, then.
Yeah, the last Wednesday in March. I'll pencil that in, but we'll remain flexible. And there also might be a possibility of having splitting into 2 groups. I think I think that the macro people or the micro people, I'm thinking of Carol and Shankar, might want to just form their own group and go from there. I mean, I could sit around in kibitz, but I'm not sure I would be like actively participating. Anyway, just some thoughts. We'll throw it out. We'll pencil it in for a month from now, at the same time, namely 5 p.m. Pacific, which is, and I don't think anybody's actually in the Pacific time zone, but that's sort of the way we notate it. So it'd be 6 p.m. for us, 8 p.m. for the people on the East Coast. And then we'll just like give it like a paragraph or two from each of us, and we'll put it in where it would be maybe docs and files.
Okay.
I'll start with docs and files for our ideas about this group, and then I'll just whoever wants to put in something can put in a paragraph or two in that document.
No, I made a mistake. I misunderstood, and I thought you said we're meeting in 2 weeks and in the morning. And I typed that to Sailesh, and he said, yes, morning meetings would be best. In reference to meeting with JF, if that's what we wanted to do. But the other possibility is to just, if we want to join the Aquarius group, I can add us. Thus far, there haven't been any base camp certified meetings of the Aquarius group, but that's obviously what he's going to be discussing on Monday. So I can report back on that, and I'll report back in the on the base camp just to let you know what's going on. Is there any? And there's the other person whose name I forget. Name begins with A. She was asking about. Well, she's going to watch the meeting of this. Sorry, A. I don't remember your name. And we'll try to find a way to accommodate people in Europe if they want to engage this conversation.
You mean the vegan link?
Oh, the vegan link guy as well. That's Jeff Adams. But there was somebody in the group that whose name is I'm blanking on right now. She sent a message to Keith and to myself to say that she won't be able to make this because she's in Europe.
Yes, if I had another minute or two, I could probably, it's sort of vaguely name Angela sort of is in my background, but that may not be right. Anyway, we'll find her and we'll talk to her.
Yeah, it's Angela Lynch.
Angela Lynch, yes.
Sorry, Angela. But, sorry, I forgot your name. But is 4 weeks for doing a few paragraphs seems like a long time. Are you sure you don't want to?
2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 week? What do you think? I mean, I'd say 2 weeks. All in favor of 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay.
And same time. Do you want to say same time unless we get an awful lot of interest in Europe?
Yeah, I'd say same time initially, and then we'll allow some wiggle room to change that if somebody says, "Oh, I'm in Europe and I want to talk to you all about it" or whatever.
The other possibility, the reason why I brought up the 24-hour block party is that if any one of us wants to take our findings and present it to groups in different time zones, that's an opportunity to do so. So that's there as, as a reportage to the rest of the base camp people that are involved in everybody outside of base camp that happens to be involved with that 24-hour block party.
So am I hearing a comfort in taking Ray's suggestion of joining the block party for those people who are in Europe, but then we will be meeting in the evenings on a more regular basis, or at least start that way? Is that what I'm understanding? I'm not hearing anything.
We're sticking to this time zone, right? Same
slot.
But in 2 weeks?
Time. Yeah, in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks, in 2 weeks?
2 weeks is going to be, actually, we're going to be on daylight time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if that makes it better or worse from the point of view of Europe. But it's different anyway. It'd be closer to their time, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
So unless they go on daylight time, but does Europe have daylight time? Does anyone know?
I don't know. I think they do. I'm in Arizona. And we don't subscribe to daylight savings. It's very confusing.
Yes,
but,
I'm familiar.
We're on Pacific, so we adhere to Pacific time. It's all right. We adjust. Yeah, confusion for a day or two, and then we all adjust. So
yes. Yeah, I just want to. Yeah, I just want to add it to the thought for the Ray or the base camp or the block party mainly. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said base camp. The block party is a good thing. It's more like what I see is like put the idea in a common place. It's more like an outreach or open table or even like a volunteer recruitment because of mine.
You cut out a bit.
Yeah, I think I'm.
Yeah, it's very open forum, except when it's not. We can block an actual hour, in whatever hour that we think would be. It starts at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So
What day of the week is it usually?
Friday starts at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time till 9 a.m. on Saturday.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got statements, and we've got a tentative meeting in 2 weeks at the same time, unless we change our minds. We'll see how that goes. And so, is there anything? Anybody else want to say anything, or are we ready to adjourn?
I've got one thing to bring up for Shankar. We could talk about this later, but my wife works for a company called Crossover that takes a bunch of online companies, usually software as a service, and fires all the staff and then hires from a remote work base. And I said, you should reverse engineer that and present it to Basecamp and say, we could have a vegan workforce that we hire through the same system that she can, reverse engineer from this non-vegan work group that she's working with. She's not convinced, but I she works from home, and we could talk about it sometime if you think that could be a good framework for a vegan economy, vegan commerce.
Definitely. I think we need a lot of workforce, right? Definitely.
Well, fantastic, everyone, and I'll see you in the base camp or in 2 weeks, whichever comes first. So great seeing everybody, and we'll talk to you later.
Where's the required reading?
What?
Where's the required reading posted?
There's no required reading in this place, but I mean the suggested reading is in the I believe it's in the docs and files. Let's see.
I mentioned Deborah Fries, and she actually has a TED Talk, so that's a lot easier than reading.
Yeah, Docs and Files has an ecological economics reading list and an ecological economics viewing list. But that's mostly from my perspective, which is going to be mostly like macro economics. Not sure if everybody's going to be interested in that, but you might want to take a look at it.
Are we also looking at economy in a sense of global, national, local?
Well, yes.
Because local economy is a kind of a topic of its own, and everybody usually is referring to national economy when they refer to it without any specification. So there's a broad range of philosophies that will be coming into play here, I assume.
Okay.
It came up because Deborah Fries's TED Talk is called about how I became a localist, but it actually gets into her whole philosophy of system change and the illuminators, the trailblazers, hospice workers, and protectors. That's all her terminology that we borrowed for the base camp.
Yeah, we could talk some more about this, but yeah, I have some questions I want to ask about the whole local economy thing. But anyway, so maybe put that in your paragraph or your second paragraph or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so fantastic, and we'll talk to each other later. Bye-bye.
Right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.